The root of all desires is the one desire to come home, to be at peace. If the ego is in the slightest way separated from its source, it yearns to find it again. This search comes from the remembrance of unity and plenitude. As every experience emanates from the non-experience, which is our real being, the me also bears a scent of its source. This remembering is awakened through those moments of desirelessness and in deep sleep. We are completely unaware of our true nature because we identify ourselves with our body, our emotions, and our thoughts, thus losing sight of our unchanging centre, which is pure consciousness. When we return to our true nature, our thoughts and perceptions no longer appear as modifications of a single substance. They come into being and subside like waves of the ocean. Our surroundings are not contained by name and form. You are neither the body nor the mind. These are limits you identify with through a lack of clear-sightedness. When you are attentive to a tree or a flower, the perception, shape, name and concept are not the only things present. There is also the all-presence that you share with them and that you are both part of. The very name and form spring forth from this eternal background, the all-presence. This is instantaneous awareness that cannot be reached by thought. Free yourself from all beliefs, all norms. See that you live completely with beliefs. Free yourself from second-hand information. See in you clearly what is beautiful. All that is beautiful in you is right. Look at the situation with an open mind, free from hearsay. The solution is in the situation. So see the situation clearly with an open mind. Then the choiceless decision comes. It is like being in the desert. At first you listen to the absence of sounds and call it silence. Then suddenly you may be taken by the presence of stillness, where you are one with listening itself. To identify yourself with your personality is more or less a reflex. You must see, when the reflex comes up, that it is a kind of feeling of insecurity. You are looking for a hold. Nothing that can be known has existence in itself. It depends on a knower. The knower is consciousness. The human form is a microcosm of the universe. All that supposedly exists outside us, in reality exists in us. The world is in you and can become known in you, as you. First, we must see that we cannot will ourselves to be open, because openness is our very nature. Any tiny residue of willing, of wanting to be open, takes us away from what we are. Willing never goes beyond willing. So the only way to be free from this circle is to glimpse the truth that openness is the egoless state that is here and now. You are primal awareness. Life is only primal awareness. Between two thoughts or two perceptions, you are. You know moments in your life when a thought completely disappears into silence, but still, you are. In listening and stillness, there is no body who is still. And this stillness doesn't refer to any object. It is absolutely objectless. It is our real nature. We must investigate, get to know ourselves, what we generally understand to be our body and psyche. Most of the time we live in reaction and double reaction. For example, when we react in anger, we may also try to remain calm and collected. We try many different escape routes. By such means, we constantly limit our possibilities and turn in a vicious circle. The only way out is to simply observe. This allows us to take note of our physical reactions, our mental attitudes and patterns, and our motivations at the exact moment they appear. It involves no evaluation, no analysis, which is based on memory. At first, the observer might find it difficult to be impersonal, to free themselves from evaluating. One tends to emphasize the object and thus become its accomplice. Later, however, observing itself is emphasized and becomes more natural, more frequent. There comes a time when a neutrality installs itself between the observer and what they observe, and both poles lose their driving force. There is silence. We no longer nourish the conditioned object. At certain moments, when alone, we feel a great lack deep within ourselves. This lack is the central one, giving rise to all others. The need to fill this lack, quench this thirst, urges us to think and act. Without even questioning it, we run away from this insufficiency. We try to fill it first with one object, then with another. Then, disappointed, we go from one compensation to another, from failure to failure, from one source of suffering to another, from one more to another. This is the destiny to which a large part of humanity devotes itself. Some resign themselves to this state of being which they judge to be inevitable. Others, at first deluded by the satisfaction brought about by these objects, come to realize that they give rise to a surfeit and even to indifference. Some are brought to take a closer look. The object fully satisfies us for a short time, during which we are back in our intrinsic nature, fulfillment. At the moment of fullness, there is no awareness of an object. Thus, the object cannot be the cause of our experience. It is essential to come to know these moments of joy without object. We habitually attribute a cause to joy. We turn joy into an object because memory links the two together. But in reality, they are of two entirely different natures. Thus we realize that the object is consumed in the joy of our being. It is only through silent awareness that our physical and mental nature can change. This change is completely spontaneous. If we make an effort to change, we do no more than shift our attention from one level, from one thing, to another. We remain in a vicious circle. This only transfers energy from one point to another. It still leaves us oscillating between suffering and pleasure, each leading inevitably back to the other. Only living stillness, stillness without someone trying to be still, is capable of undoing the conditioning our biological, emotional, and psychological nature has undergone. There is no controller, no selector, no personality making choices. In choiceless living, the situation is given the freedom to unfold. You do not grasp one aspect over another, for there is nobody to grasp. When you understand something and live it without being stuck to the formulation, what you have understood dissolves in your openness. In this silence, change takes place of its own accord. The problem is resolved, and duality ends. You are left in your glory, where no one has understood, and nothing has been understood. All our senses, sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell, have been channeled or dispersed towards personal defense and aggression, used as tools to maintain the person. But liberation does not concern the person. For liberation is freedom from the person. Basically, the disciple and the teacher are identical. Both are the timeless axis of all action and perception. The only difference is that one knows themselves for what they are, while the other does not. The personality is nothing other than a projection, a habit created by memory and nourished by desire. Ask yourself the question, who am I? And lucidly observe that the questioner, the thinker, the doer, sufferer, are all forms that appear and disappear within the consciousness of I am, the ever-living background. They have no reality in themselves. What we call the person is due to a mistake. Thoughts, feelings, and actions appear and disappear indefinitely, creating an illusion of continuity. The idea of being a person, an ego, is nothing other than an image held together by memory. To free yourself from mental confusion, simply be aware of it. Observe how you function without the slightest idea of changing anything. Vigilance purifies the mind, and sooner or later will place you knowingly beyond it. You encounter ups and downs in your search for the self because you do not yet see things in their true perspective as a whole. This instability will continue just as long as you consider yourself as the body and mind. The mind will lead you astray until you perceive its true nature. This insight is the result of listening, free from the past. Live with the sayings of the teacher and the reminders of truth these awaken. These unspoken reminders are the perfume of that to which they refer. Attune yourself to this stillness and not with what you are not. Why identify with the world? All existence is an expression of consciousness. What you are fundamentally is without cause, is completely autonomous, so that taking yourself for an individual doer who lives in a world of choice, is an illusion of the ego. You must turn to this impersonal background as often as the opportunity beckons. Take note that your attention is constantly turned either towards objects or to ideas. A sense of being without qualification is completely unknown to you. Become the spectator. Become aware of the natural flow of life, your motives, actions, and what results from them. Observe the walls you have built around yourself. As you become more aware of your body and mind, you will come to know yourself. As this image of things as you believe them to be subsides, you will have a clear insight of what you are, something quite other than a product of the mind. You will gradually feel less and less involved in whatever comes up, and one day you will discover yourself to be in the perceiving. Once you free yourself from the idea, I am my body, and the consequences of this idea, you will awaken to your natural state of being. Give yourself up entirely to this discovery. True awareness cannot be obtained by projecting known factors in terms of concepts and perceptions. What you are fundamentally cannot be experienced through reason and is only reached once you eliminate what you are not. A willful ego hinders you from being. The witness must enter upon the scene, enabling the ego to be recognized for what it is, an object. This witness is a pedagogical device that opens the door to being. The ego cannot know itself because it identifies with what it thinks, feels, experiences. For the ego, there is nothing but resistance, defense, agitation. It is the witness that shines forth and shows up the ego for what it is, an illusion. The contemplative witnessing state leads us to discover what we are not. We become aware of our body and thought patterns, the reasons that motivate our actions, of which we were previously scarcely conscious. When we observe thought without interference or evaluation, without reference, the thought vanishes in the observing. As the emphasis is no longer on the thought process and content, but on the observing itself, this witness state becomes a purification, a letting go, without there being a person who purifies or lets go. A whole world of unsuspected energies releases itself. Mental activity ceases to be agitated and spontaneously follows its natural course. We discover ourselves in attention. We completely abandon the I am this, I am that reflex. This attention transcends the experience and the experiencer. It is pure awareness.